I am Slick Nick, and if you're all into this whole red pill, blue pill, black pill thing, then this is the video that you have been itching to comment on. Why? Because here recently, while wearing the same shirt just minutes ago, I filmed a couple of videos openly talking about the fact that I dyed my beard. And let's unpack that. There's a lot of psychology in there, and let's keep in mind, we live in the age of tribalism, so people love to try to prove each other wrong. It's just like with the Super Bowl. You root for your team and the other team, they're idiots. They're gonna lose this thing, right? People like to do that with each other, whether it's Democrats, Republicans. A lot of people will do this if they're blue pill or black pill, trying to prove red pill wrong. And I'm very openly red pill. So let's define what red pill means to me. It means instead of chasing happiness, you create happiness. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim, you see yourself as victorious no matter what your circumstance. So many people are itching to say in the comments, so let me just go ahead and say it. People would say, Nick, how do you call yourself red pill if you dye your beard? Then what's the difference from that and getting a hair transplant or taking minoxidil or something? Because Nick, you've been very vocal. You have absolutely no interest in trying to save your hair. You're not trying to save your hair. You're embracing your hairline. Whether that means you buzz it off or whether you grow it out and it has the widow peak showing, clearly you're not for trying to save your hair. That's not what this channel is about. I get it, Nick, but it seems a little hypocritical of you to say you're red pill and then you're gonna dye your hair. So let's talk about that. So here's how I feel. When I say red pill is about focusing on what you can control and creating your own happiness instead of chasing your happiness and wishing for happiness and trying to buy your happiness, I think we would have to agree that there's going to be a bit of a spectrum. We can't be as one way or the other. That's how people like to act, all tribalistic like that. However, the reality of it is there are certain things that you're going to do just for basic maintenance that are not that involved. So to be sure, I spent $11 on this, and I spent about 2 minutes maybe putting the dye in, and then I had to wash it out. Very little time, $11, very little money, very little effort went into dyeing this beard, okay? So let's imagine things that would also maybe fall into that category of just spending a few minutes and not really time, emotion, energy, money, all that stuff. Anything you could spent very little of that. Okay, so what I would compare it to, maybe, I don't know, trimming my neckline. I do that every 2 days. I get the razor, I trim that. Because I would say I wouldn't feel good about myself if I had, just a hairy neck. That would look bad. I go through the trouble of doing that. So it's not like by being red pill, I'm saying, hey, you should just let everything go. Hey, I do a lot of manscaping too. I'm a hairy guy. And I often have the clippers and I'm shaving my chest, shaving my back. I'm a hairy guy. So if I don't do that, I don't feel comfortable with all that body hair. So that's another thing that I do. Well, is that blue pill that I do manscaping and that I always have? I've always been a hairy guy, always. So does that make me less red pill because I pay attention to those maintenance sort of things? Is it not red pill that I actually focus on what I'm wearing and I try to make sure that I have clothes that are somewhat flattering to my body type and making sure that I'm not wearing clothes that look like I'm from the 90s, wearing pleated khaki pants. That sort of thing. Does that make me less red pill? So for me, when you spend very little money, time, energy, emotion, all those things, when you spend very little, to me, that's still red pill. You're still working with what you got. To me, where it goes into more blue pill territory, where you're trying to chase happiness and buy happiness, is when you're spending a lot of time, energy, emotion, money on those things. And it's gonna be more of an extreme decision. So for example, getting a hair transplant, you're spending thousands of dollars. There's typically a lot of emotion and identity going into that. I'll be happy about who I will be once I get this hair on my head again. To me, that is not red pill. It's very extreme. And what if it doesn't work? Then you've given all that time, energy, money, emotion to something now you have even less happiness because now it doesn't work. And for me, it's still the same thing with taking some kind of drug like Propecia or whatever. Let's say it does work. Well, I'm paying money to try to save my hair. And again, I'm putting hope that it's going to work. And if it doesn't, then I'll be sad and I'll feel bad about myself. Like that's the concept with that. Not to mention there could be side effects involved in that. And it only works as long as I'm doing it. So now let's loop back around. Well, okay, Nick, you're still sounding hypocritical because you go to the gym 6 days a week. You're trying to lose body fat and build muscle. And here you are saying that if you take Propecia, it's only going to work as long as you use it. Well, Nick, if you know anything about building muscle, don't you know that even if you start building muscle, you're only going to really keep that as long as you keep going to the gym 6 days a week and eating the way that you did. So I would say maybe that's a good point. Maybe it's super red pill. Maybe it's not red pill. I think it's very interesting. And I think we have to feel comfortable in having this gray area discussion. Goes back to what I've said before about the top 5. Everybody has a top 5. Top five priorities that you care about. When people say, oh, I meant to, I just didn't have time. Well, what they're saying is that thing was not in their top 5. Okay? Something that is in my top 5 is being physically fit and spend the rest of my life to not chase the happiness, but have that goal of building on top and becoming better when it comes to that. That's part of my top 5. For other people watching this channel, their top 5 is to try to not go bald. That's not in my top 5 at all. It's not something I care about. As far as if we want to make this me focused on my physical appearance, then the thing I do care about is being physically fit. See, blue pill people or even black pill people will say, Nick, you sound very blue pill because you're saying work with what you got. So if you're going to work with what you got, you should be a 40-year-old man. You should have a gut and you should have a double chin. That's how you should look, Nick. Well, if I were to not go to the gym and not do my diet the way I do, maybe. But also I recognize we live in the modern times where I literally make a living sitting right on the other side of the camera at my kitchen table. So it didn't used to be that way. 100 years ago and before that, men actually had to work for a living physically. They were walking and pushing and pulling and lifting. They were doing manual labor to survive. And so when you take that away, you have to supplement. Otherwise, you're going to become something unnatural, something that we haven't really been until really about the last 50 years, where now men have to go to the gym and supplement that manual labor, ultimately, building their muscles, because it's way too easy to not build muscles and still make a living. And by doing that, you actually can lose muscle mass and in turn eat more calories than you're burning and gain body fat. So I think it's interesting. Here's what I'm gonna say. If you believe that I'm a hypocrite for saying that I'm red pill, yet still choosing to dye my beard, then here's what I'm gonna say. You're absolutely right, because anything you believe is true. If it's in your mind, that's your perception of reality. But I do think, and I'm not defending myself at all, because I still identify as true red pill, but what I would say is, and this is the challenge for viewers who think that I'm hypocritical for saying that I'm still red pill, though I've dyed my beard. I would say, look at the spectrum. How much time, energy, money, emotions are you spending on this thing? I would say dyeing a beard is very, very low on that spectrum. I'd say getting a hair transplant or even taking prescription drugs to save your hair would be on the extreme. There's a lot of time, energy, money, and hope spent in that. So I'd say we have to consider that it's not all or nothing. There is in between. Now, tell me what you believe right here in the comments.